Service Management Kali Linux. Armand Shahriarian. Service Management. For a long time, there were two styles of service management, the BSD way and the AT&T way. This is no longer true. There are now three ways of managing services. Before we get into service management, we should first define a service. A service in this context is a program that runs without any user intervention. The operating environment starts it up automatically and it runs in the background. Unless you got a list of processes, you may never know it was running. Most systems have a decent number of these services running at any point. They are called services because they provide a service either to the system, to the users, or sometimes to remote users. Since there is no direct user interaction, generally, in terms of the startup and termination of these services, there needs to be another way to start and stop the services. That can be called automatically during startup and shutdown of the system. With the facility to manage the services in place, users can also use the same facility to start, stop, restart, and get the status of these services. Administrative privileges for services. Services are system level. Managing them requires administrative privileges. Either you need to be root or you need to use sudo to gain temporary root privileges in order to perform the service. Management functions. For a long time, many Linux distributions used the AT&T init startup process. This meant that services were run with a set of scripts that took standard parameters. The init startup system used run levels to determine which services started. Single user mode would start up a different set of services than multi-user mode. Even more ISAs would be started up when a display manager is being used, to provide GUIs to users. The scripts were stored in /etc/init.d/ and could be managed by providing parameters such as start, stop, restart, and status. As an example, if you wanted to start the SSH service, you might use the command /etc/init.d/ssh start. The problem with the init system, though, was that it was generally serial in nature. This caused performance issues on system startup because every service would be started in sequence rather than multiple services starting at the same time. The other problem with the init system was that it didn't support dependencies well. Often, one service may rely on other services that had to be started first. Along comes systemd, which was developed by software developers at Red Hat. The goal of systemd was to improve the efficiency of the init system and overcome some of its shortcomings. Services can declare dependencies, and services can start in parallel. There is no longer a need to write bash scripts to start up the services. Instead, there are configuration files, and all service management is handled with the program sys. Systemctl. To manage a service using systemctl, you would use systemctl verb service, where verb is the command you are passing and service is the name of the service. As an example, if you wanted to enable the SSH service and then start it, you would issue the commands in example 1 to 5. Example 1 to 5. Enabling and starting SSH service. Root at rosebud #systemctl enable SSH. Root at rosebud #systemctl start SSH. The first thing we do is enable the service. You are telling your system that when you boot, you want this service to start. The different system startup modes that the service will start in are configured in the configuration file associated with the service. Every service has a configuration file. Instead of run levels, as the old init system used, systemd uses targets. A target is essentially the same as a run level, in that it indicates a particular mode of operation of your system. In example 1 to 6, you can see an example of one of these scripts from the syslog service. Example 1 to 6. Configuring service for systemd. The unit section indicates requirements and the description as well as documentation. The service section indicates how the service is to be started and managed. The install service indicates the target that is to be used. In this case, syslog is in the multi-user target. Kali is using a systemd-based system for initialization and service management, so you will primarily use systemd to manage your services. In rare cases, a service that has been installed doesn't support installing to systemd. In that case, you will install a service script to /etc/init.d/ and you will have to call the script there to start and stop the service. For the most part, these are rare occurrences,